On today's video, I'm going to explain my process for hiring the first employee in my business. When I got started on this process, to be honest, I was super clueless, and I was looking over the internet and I couldn't find any resources that talked about the process from going from a business of one into a business of multiple. All the advice that I found was, if considering you already have a core team, how to grow that, but I couldn't find much information about the process from one to many, and this is what I'm going to cover in this video. It's a little bit different from what you see on this channel. In general, it's not going to be design or freelance, but how to move from a one-person business into a bigger organization. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, what is up? So if some of you have been following the channel for the last few years, you know I've been working as a solopreneur, as a business of one for over probably 6 or 7 years. And even though in the last year, my wife has started helping me out with finance and stuff like that, bookkeeping and operations of my business, I didn't have a full-time employee. There is a few freelancers that help me along the way. I have Nick, who's editing my videos, and Fabiana, who helps me with copywriting. And I have a few people helping me out, but no core team. And I do understand that now when I try to grow my business, I need to have dedicated people that are going to work with me, that I can think and brainstorm with, that I can help develop, so that not all the business is dependent on me. And as I said in the intro, I couldn't find a lot of resources about it. And so I kind of hacked my way. I got some resources from my coach, Rob, who actually gave me a super interesting book that's called Who, and that's basically the framework I use that I'm going to cover in this video for hiring, but the actual tactics, step by step, of what I had to do from knowing that I need to hire into having a full-time employee on my team. That was kind of like I needed to figure this out on my own. So the first step was reading this book, Who, which basically explains kind of a process about how to define a role and how to interview. And I read that, and after I read this, I actually found out this amazing Coda template. Now, I've shared on the channel multiple times that I'm using Coda, which is kind of an elaborate doc, and somebody has created, I guess it's a person that's called Victor. He took the book Who that I read and the book Work Rules and actually created kind of a step-by-step process explaining the process, and this doc was really useful for me to kind of guide me in the step-by-step. So the first step in the process is to define a scorecard, and the scorecard is basically understanding what do you need to solve for. So who is the person that you're looking? What business problem are you looking to solve with this role? How does success look like? What are the traits and attributes that this person needs to have? So this is kind of basically the template that he shared on this doc, and I went ahead and kind of filled it up. So this is what I was trying to hire for. So a social media marketer. So basically I had to define the mission statement here and how he's going to do that. So as you can see, I was looking for somebody to help me with planning and execution of my social media channels. And I also had some outcomes. So how do I know if this person is successful? I want to know that I'm hitting 100,000 followers on Instagram and 150 subscribers on YouTube and driving 100,000 visitors to my websites. Then the competencies. So the idea here with this Who process is that you write what you need, what competencies or skills do you need, and then when you do the interviews, you're actually looking for proofs, for stories and data that shows that this person actually has those attributes. So you don't tell him what you're looking for, but you're looking when you're asking him questions, and the questions are basically just to share stories about his experiences. Then you're looking for clues. Oh, he's good with this or he's not good with that, and you want to see that there's a good fit. Now, this whole process, the idea behind this Who method is you want to make sure that the person that you're hiring has like a 90% chance of succeeding in the role. So basically, you don't want to take risk that you're hire somebody that's going to fail. You want to make sure that he has the skills necessary to succeed. So the first step was to write this scorecard. And this scorecard is personal for me. You don't share that when you're doing the hiring processes. For me, it was also, I wanted to understand, so this is kind of like things that I added on top of the template. I wanted to imagine like how would a week look for them? What would they do on every day of the week? And I also wanted to know how I'm going to compensate them. So this was something that I struggled with. How do you know how much to pay for somebody? And I really took inspiration. There's some transparent companies around that are really transparent around how much they're paying and how they're thinking about compensation and paying salaries. Buffer is one of them. So Buffer is a kind of a social media scheduling tool, and they're pretty open. They actually have an amazing kind of spreadsheet. You can see everybody who's worked in the company and how much money they make, and they explain the rationale and the formula that they use to calculate their salaries. And I think this is amazing. Now, I'm all for transparency, and I share everything on this YouTube channel, from my failures to how much money I make. And so I thought this is something that I do want to participate. I want to use their data and their framework to calculate how much money I should pay for somebody, and also share that with them so they'll know why I'm paying that much. So so they actually have this kind of a Buffer calculator, which basically you can choose a position and you can choose whether the city that they're living in is low or average or high cost of living, and it will give you kind of an average salary. Now, it doesn't work for all roles, in basically just the roles that they are hiring for. But in this case, they did have content marketers, and I needed to know what kind of city. So this you do this calculation obviously after you have a potential hire that you know where they live. So you can't calculate the final salary, but that's okay. I just wanted to have a framework to know how to think about this, and also think about the other benefits that I want to give. Like, I knew that I was hiring remotely. I'm based in Tel Aviv, Israel, but I knew that I'm looking to hire remotely. But I knew that whoever I hire, I want to bring to Israel to do kind of an onboarding for a few days, just to build a better relationship and to teach them everything I know, so that we'll have, because basically relationship is, the better relationship and trust you have, the less communication is needed. So I wanted to build trust and a relationship as fast as possible, and I knew that it'll be best to do this in person. So I knew I'm going to fly this person to Israel for a few days. I knew I'm going to give them a laptop. I knew I'm going to invest in them, kind of like I was thinking, if I invest in myself by, buying myself books and courses and going to events, if I take vacation to spend time with my family and off work, I want to offer them the same, because why if I think that's important enough for me, I guess I think it's important enough for them. So basically, this is kind of how I thought about compensation and benefits. Now, once I had this, I've actually went ahead and I added a page on my website that's kind of like a position. Now, most position pages that I see and I looked for reference, they're really boring. They're like requirements, the role description, and I thought this was really boring. And I saw one example. I forgot the link, so I can't show you the reference. But basically, the position page was written like a sales page. At the end of the day, you want to sell somebody the idea of why they should come to work with you, right? At least to apply, then you can interview and you can make a choice. But to begin with, you want to interest the right people. So I went ahead and created this kind of a position page, which actually looks like a sales page. It has a value proposition: create the best design content online while earning a stable full-time salary. I went ahead and described what that person in the situation might be like you want to create amazing, helpful content on social media. You want to work to be seen and impact lives of thousands. You want a long-term position that can be done remotely. So basically, I went ahead and wrote kind of like a sales page again for this position: 7 reasons to become a full-time social media marketer at Flux. And I've explained pretty much all the benefits. So that's kind of the framework where I was thinking about. And at the end, I did apply. And when you hit apply, you actually go into a type form kind of survey that I've created. And this is basically kind of like an input form. So here they write, their full name, they write their email address. And I've asked them a few questions here. And this is actually, I've actually used a little mixed up of a few kind of methods that I read online. So this was from somewhere that I took from another article that I read about how to hire. So I've asked the question: why are you applying to this role? What makes you excited? Give us example of successes that you have. In this case, because I'm hiring for social media, so I wanted to see content that they've already created. LinkedIn profile. Because this is a remote position, where are you located, and time difference, blah, 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 blah. And then they apply. And then because you actually have to think about this in terms of a funnel. So a funnel, you try to bring in as many people as possible and then try to find the right person by eliminating, by interviewing. So the first step was to try to get as many people as possible to see the sales page and fill out this form. So the way that I did this is I shared it obviously on my social media platform, and because I have a big email list, I send this out to all my email list. And this is how I got a huge kind of a lot of traffic and interest from the people that already know me, which is also a benefit, right? Because they already know you and probably they want to work with you. So that's an added benefit. And I got about 100 people to fill out the form. So it was a lot of work to go through each one of the applications and think, should I interview them? Should I not interview them? Is this a good fit? Is this not a good fit? So out of the 100, I've interviewed, I think about 12 or 13 people. And actually, so back to the who method, the first interview, it's basically like 4 interviews. And the first interview is called screening interview. And the goal of this interview is to understand if they're kind of high performers or low performance. And you do them basically by asking them what are their career goals and what are they good at and not so good at. And usually the way that this method describes high achievers is high achievers and high performers usually know what their goals are. So they tell you, oh, I know I want to do this and this and that. If somebody, you ask him, hey, what's your professional goal? And they're like, I don't know, to make money or something like that, you see that they're not focused. You see that they're probably haven't thought about this a lot. And this is an indication that maybe they're not super high performers. So the idea of the screening interview is to talk to people and make this really quick, like a 20-minute interview. And you might even know after like a few minutes that they're not a good fit. So I had people which came on the, that I interviewed with, looked like pretty good candidate based on the form. And after like 3 minutes on the interview, you ask them what their goals are. And they told, oh, I want to be a successful freelancer and I want to do this and that. And I was like, okay, so this is not a good fit because I'm looking to hire for a full-time position. You want to be a freelancer. We shouldn't even keep talking. Like, it's not, you might be a good person. You might be a high performer, but our goals are not aligned, so this is just not going to work. So it took me a little while, and again, I did this 13 times, so I built confidence one after another to get to a point where somebody got on a call with you, and then after 3 minutes, you're like, okay, good, bye-bye. So it's a little bit uncomfortable, and sometimes you're going to spend 20 minutes just to not make them feel bad that they're not a good fit, but it's not their fault actually, and you're not telling them you're a bad person. You're basically just saying, hey, look, this is not a good fit. So I build up to it, and at the end of after doing this a while, I was able to kind of do this fast and understand quickly who's a good fit and not a good fit. Now, for the people who were a good fit, you go in and you do the second interview, which is basically you go ahead and you ask them their whole basically professional history. So what was your first job? What was your second job? What was your third job? And in each job, you ask them a few questions and it kind of repeats itself, like, what did you do there? What did you do good there? What did you do bad there? Why did you leave? How did you leave? And by asking these questions, again, you're looking for those clues and those proofs if this person is aligned with the scorecard that you defined to begin with. Now, the next step is to do reference calls. By the way, at this point, I've interviewed like 12, 13 people. There was only one of them that made it to the second interview. There was another person that I suggested, let's do the second interview. But at that point, he actually told me, you know what, it's not a good fit. So actually just one person made it to the second interview, but he also nailed the second interview and he also nailed the third one. And the third one is actually doing reference calls. So you want to talk to other people that worked with him in the past. So the person that, by the way, that I end up hiring, and you might have seen him on this channel or on my social media, on my Instagram, is Alejandro. He lives in Gran Canaria, Spain, and he was really great. So he nailed the second interview, and then the third one, I was gonna do a reference call for the people that he worked with in the past, and it was a bit challenging. He lives in Spain, and some of the people that he worked with didn't speak English, so I had to. Luckily, I can speak a little bit of Spanish, so using my broken Spanish and Google Translate, I was managed to interview them and get. But this is very, very important, and I actually do reference checks even with freelancers that I work with, because a lot of times people might sound very good and tell you things that you want to hear, but when you're actually talking to people that work with them, things are a little bit different sometimes. But luckily, even with those initial reference calls, Alejandro did pretty well. And at that point, I was pretty convinced that I want to work with him. And I sent him the offer based on, the terms that I showed you before. And he accepted, luckily. And I flew him here to Israel, and we had a great time here for like 3-4 days. And he's now working with me. So we just concluded the first month together, and I'm super, super happy and excited for having him on the team. He's already proved himself super, super valuable. And this is, I imagine, just the value is going to keep increasing as we spend more and more time working together. So this was my process. I hope this was very helpful for you. I'll drop some of those resources down in the links below for you, and I hope you manage to make this move if you want to, if that's something that you're interested in. Because for me, for many years, I wasn't interested in growing. Now I'm super focused on growth. But if that's what you're looking for, I hope this is going to be less difficult for you with this information. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.